The streets was saying watch Saltburn. And I watched Saltburn. I love the plot.
I definitely love the plot of Saltburn.
Let's just say I can understand why it came with mixed reviews. Me personally, upon my first watch, I gave it 2.5 stars. I hate to say it, but as I thought about it a little bit more, my rating definitely increased, and we're going to talk about why today. As I was doing research for this, I noticed that the common consensus is that Saltburn is really all style and no substance. So let's unpack why people think that, what I personally think, and lots of symbolism that I found in Saltburn.
I love them. I love them.
My intention of this video is just to kind of go through it with the knowledge in mind that you saw it. If you didn't see it, that's really not my problem. Go watch Saltburn, take it in yourself, then come back to this video. I haven't digested any other forms of media, no other reviews, things like that. Anything that I read, like articles and things like that, I'll detail throughout the video. But I didn't really get into other people's reviews because I don't really want to be biased and let that sway my opinion. Now, one thing I can say about this movie is that it is visually stunning. I can understand the common sentiment that Saltburn is very much stylistic in its approach. You know, I'm watching it, I'm like, oh yes, I love Euphoria. Like, yes, it's giving Euphoria party vibes, and I love that about it. Direction wise, I love the shots in this movie. There was one part where we first get to Saltburn, and then Jacob Elordi's character Felix is like walking through the house. The one thing that I dislike direction wise is that we get this nice shot and it's very like, it's tracking, right? I can understand them wanting to break up that shot and give it a different angle to it by showing Oliver's reaction to this like lavish house, right? But the way it was following Jacob around was so well done that I'm like, I could sit and watch like 2-3 minutes of this, and maybe I'm just biased because it's Jacob Elordi. Like, maybe I'm just biased, but let's say in the mirrors that were, you know, around, like they could show his reaction like in a mirror, or even just track the camera around and like track it back almost in a The Last of Us type vibe. Speaking of Barry or Oliver, when I say this man is insane, when I really say no money, no family, 16 in the middle of Miami, like that was Oliver. Just absolutely absurd, Your Honor. And when I wasn't appalled and confused and shocked by what Oliver was doing, I was gagged that we got the Gone Girl and Promising Young Woman on screen together in one room. Hello. Because why is no one else gagging? The cuntometer, it just went off the charts. Like, you know when you do, not whack-a-mole, but can you imagine if the cuntometer was that thing and I whacked it and it flew past the bell, broke the scale? And the most important note of all, get that man some brown contacts. In a world where we're pretty much overwhelmed with floating head posters for every single movie, I really need to talk about the simple yet beautiful poster for Saltburn. When I first looked at the poster for Saltburn, I was kind of like, oh, it's kind of simple. Like, okay, like what am I really looking at here, right? I mean, just people on the poster, right? And thank God it's just not a floating head, because I'm tired of that shit. The first thing that I noticed is that it kind of reminded me like a reflection, like in mirrors, right? Because it's kind of like repeating images of the characters in the poster, right? So then I'm like, it kind of looks like a kaleidoscope, right? Like if you think of a kaleidoscope, it's like a repeating image over and over, but it's essentially a ton of mirrors. So when you think about it, it's patterns that are repeated but subsequently changed because they're reflected off of mirrors multiple times. So when I look at this poster, I love its simplicity but complexity because it really reflects the multiple faces that the people in this movie have. And it really hones in on that fact that like multiple things can be true at once because people are multifaceted and very nuanced. So when I look at Oliver, I'm thinking in this kaleidoscope mirror image where multiple things can be true at once, Oliver can be the person that is so in love with Felix that he will gulp the drain down, but also be so desperate he will lie his way into a bag and scam his way to the top. But I also like the idea that because it's a kaleidoscope or a mirror or reflecting off of each other, Oliver and Felix are one and the same and parallels of each other. So when I watch Saltburn and I see Felix, it almost gives me, he's so much of a real bitch that it's like, a facade. It's almost like Felix is putting on this act of what it's like to be this rich, unattainable man. But we know he has that little edgy, quirky side, you know, the piercing, but he can't wear that at home. And that's something that he detests about his family. And we can see in other ways that he doesn't really like the way his family acts, like when they're talking about Oliver. Oliver is of course lying about everything, but that's the real Oliver, to be a liar. If you think about it, Felix and Oliver are both putting on act, and they're more alike than we think. They're so opposite that they become alike, or a reflection, a kaleidoscope, as we see in the poster.
Wait a minute.
I really like this imagery, and maybe it's not that serious, but I like to break things down, and that's kind of what I got from it.
Okay.
A lot of people like to throw around the word foreshadowing, or this happened in the beginning and it's automatically foreshadowing. So let's talk about what foreshadowing actually is. When you think about foreshadowing, it is not something that is usually explicitly said to the person consuming a piece of media. It could be within dialogue, it could be an action a character does, but it's usually like something really minuscule that you might not realize the first time you watch it. I think in Saltburn, a lot of the foreshadowing comes in costume design choices or what the characters are wearing. And again, you can say I'm overthinking, but nothing in a movie is a mistake. Everything has to be chosen, including a shirt that Jacob Elordi wears in a bar. Nothing is a mistake. Costume design is something that is super tedious, and whether the costume designer is literally creating pieces for this specific movie to like world build, or picking items that fits the scenario we're watching, it's a craft that needs to be acknowledged more. Have you ever noticed when you're watching a movie and the main character comes on the screen, even in a sea of people, you can pinpoint them out, and not just by camera work.
Like, yeah, they could be in the middle.
But even if they're coming out of the crowd, there will be something distinct about what they're wearing as opposed to the background actors. One article of clothing that really stuck out to me is this shirt Jacob is wearing in a bar. We see the shirt say, "What happens in Cassiopeia stays in Cassiopeia," and I could be pronouncing that wrong, but who's gonna check me?
Who gonna check me, boo? I have.
Right, that's what I thought. Now the location is not really significant, but the idea that there's an exclusivity at this place Cassiopeia is reflective of Saltburn. And someone could try to clock me and say,
"You just explained foreshadowing and that's not foreshadowing."
I don't care, this is my video. And I'm telling you, that is the device used to foreshadow and allude to why Oliver is so obsessed with Saltburn. There's a type of mystery surrounding Saltburn because not just anybody can go there. Obviously, you're going to be curious if you can't go somewhere and you don't know something. The idea that Felix, one of the people who lives at Saltburn, wears a shirt that says, "What happens in Cassiopeia stays in Cassiopeia," is a statement, because why else would he be wearing a shirt that could easily be deciphered as "What happens in Saltburn stays in Saltburn"? Like, duh, y'all got like 4 gates and a maze. What happens there is definitely staying there, because we can't even get the hell out. Now, before even watching this movie, I saw that still of Jacob Elordi in those wings, and I immediately thought about Euphoria. And obviously in Euphoria, Rue and Jules were supposed to be Romeo and Juliet, and they're star-crossed lovers, blah blah blah. I saw Jacob in that, and I literally thought it was the same thing. The theme of the party, Elizabeth, because I'm not calling you Elsbeth. You want to be different so bad. Your name is Elizabeth.
You know, there's only one person in this world who can tell you what you are.
Me.
No, me, Sue Sylvester.
Elizabeth says the theme of the party is Midsummer Night's Dream. The theme of the party is Midsummer Night's Dream. Which, I'm not even gonna lie, I read Shakespeare in school, but I didn't read Midsummer Night's Dream. And from reading the synopsis of the story, I'm kind of glad I didn't, because like, who really cares? But I did find an article in which the costume designer was interviewed for the movie. Now, to me, as someone who heard that the topic was Shakespeare and didn't want to read it, what did I do? I went on Spark Notes like a real bitch. And for what I could decipher, there was a class system of sorts, or like a hierarchy or aristocracy between like fairies and like the regular people. And there was a sort of allure to the fairies because they have powers. And the most popular fairy's name is Puck. Puck is one of the most recognizable characters in Midsummer Night's Dream, only because whenever there was like a big occurrence happening, he was usually like in the crossfire of it. So when I went to Spark Notes like a real bitch and copied and pasted into my notes so I could reference later, it said, quote, "Puck's capricious spirit, magical fancy, fun-loving humor, and lovely evocative language permeate the atmosphere of the play." Stick with me. Puck is graceful and not so saccharine as the other fairies. He is good-hearted but capable of cruel tricks. Finally, whereas most of the fairies are beautiful and ethereal, Puck is often portrayed as somewhat bizarre looking. Another fairy mentions that some call Puck a hobgoblin, a term whose connotations are decidedly less glamorous than those of a fairy. Did you understand? Even though Felix is the one wearing the wing, he is a reflection of Oliver's hobgoblin-like presence because he does not have the allure of a fairy. Think about it. Who else sticks out in the movie? Who else does not fit in at Saltburn? Who lied about their parents being drug addicts, their dad suddenly dying just to fit in and hopefully get some from Jacob Elordi? When I describe it like that, it sounds kind of real, but
Miss Jackson. Miss Jackson?
I don't know, y'all. It just sounds real. Like I wanted to give y'all like the moral, like high ground, whatever, but I can't. Like there not a day goes by where I can't be real. So it's like, now I have to credit this next part to Reddit, which I will link like any sources that I use down below, but a lot of the things that I found were pretty much my own research, minus this one part. I was intrigued by Oliver walking around with these horns, because the are you doing for real though? But I went on Reddit. I love this excerpt that they explained, so I'm gonna read it and link it below. When I was in school, they taught us a lot of random shit about like Shakespeare's days and how like if I remember correctly, the fucking arena was like a dome. The rich people, you know, buy the tickets. And then they used to call people groundlings who like couldn't afford like the scraps to see like the play. Like the poor bitches was literally on the floor.
I was like, no, like I finna be in the pit.
But one thing they did not explain to me is that the idea of horns in the Shakespeare era were actually really prevalent. One thing this excerpt explains is that horns were often used as a euphemism for being a cuckold. This specific part, they ate down. He always felt like he could never beat others when it came to Felix's attention. Never beat heteronormativity and societal expectations. He felt like he fell short in his ordinary middle-class reality as opposed to the theatrical characters Felix was always surrounded by. They kind of cleared the plate. And let's read a little bit more because it's not done, and they really devoured this. Because his obsession for Felix was so ridiculous, Oliver inevitably made himself into an emotional cuckold, someone whose object of desire will never quite feel the same way and will instead be attracted to others. Someone cooked here. The idea of unrequited love and blah 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 is not like a new thing. So when you think about the idea of Oliver literally wearing a symbol from the Shakespearean era to a Shakespearean play themed party that represents him being like emotionally invested in another person, that he would scam his way so close to the sun but not melt his wings off. Do you know how powerful that is? Like, Reddit user, you definitely cooked here. As I'm doing research in this Reddit thread of like other people's opinions on Saltburn, blah blah blah, I'm scrolling down because, you know, I want to know about the horns. There's a theory also that Farley is somewhat of a Puck character, and I actually like that a little bit. They might have cooked too. When I think about Farley, I don't know, like my mind is blank right now. The one thing that's really getting me is that I can't believe that's the same actor that was in fucking Gran Turismo, the one movie that I never saw, but I saw the trailer more times than I can even think of. Like, I'll be going to AMC to see Nicole Kidman and we come to this place for magic. No, it was putting in at work for promo, okay? Now walk with me here because we got some more ground to cover. Let's talk about the statue. You know how if you make fake money, it can't be exactly the same as real money? Like, it has to be somewhat different. That's Statue Gate. And I'm starting to think that there's maybe some rules on whether or not people can copy statues directly or something, because I looked it up and there were multiple versions of like the same similar statue and it was confusing me. Amongst the various stories that I did research on that were similar to this statue, the one that stood out to me was Hercules and the Centaur story, or Heracles if you want to be different, Elizabeth. Long story short, in the story, the Centaur tries to attack Hercules' wife and Hercules kills the Centaur. Okay. The thing that's interesting about this story though is that Hercules kills the Centaur, but the Centaur's blood is eventually what in turn kills Hercules in the end. Now walk with me here. In this analogy, I think Oliver is Hercules and Felix is the centaur. It's important to note that in this story, the wife plays a part in Hercules' death by accidentally killing him. As the centaur, Felix attacks this idealized version that Oliver has of himself. This abstract idea could also be seen as the wife who, in the original story, accidentally kills Hercules. It makes sense then that because Felix finds out about this mysterious identity and attacks what Oliver thinks he has going on by trying to scam them, he acts as what changes him the most, or in the sense, the death of Hercules in this story. Does that make sense? So instead of in the original story, you know, Hercules or Oliver dying, it's more so the death of his humanity and common sense even. Felix is killed in both stories as the centaur and as himself, but this imaginary concept of what it means to be perfect is what inevitably leads him to his death. I hope what I'm trying to say is translating well, because you could pick any statue. Like shit, you could put the Mona Lisa there. You could have no statue. It's not insignificant, guys.
It's a secret between us, Dickie. And I'll keep it.
Now, as I was trying to basically confirm my theory about the statue being in the movie and the symbolism of it, I came across this one article. Now, the first line of this article says that Saltburn isn't exactly a nuanced story and it's a take on the talented Mr. Ripley. Now, I don't know about y'all, I ain't heard of no talented Mr. Ripley. Now, I have heard of Saltburn, though.
What the fuck? When is it gonna end?
But it's okay, let's get into it. Long story short, Ripley is a scammer, just like Oliver. And in the movie, he basically is an identity thief. He takes the identity of this guy named Dickie. And basically, along the way, as people, you know, figure out his plan, he takes them out, Joe Goldberg style. Now, the thing that stood out to me is that, yes, you could consider Saltburn an interpretation of this story, and I'm sure a couple of other movies and pieces of media, but Oliver didn't necessarily want to take over his actual identity. It was more of a figurative identity. Oliver was just obsessed with the idea of like being a baddie like in a mansion, and I can definitely see the influences there. I don't necessarily think it's like copy paste. Maybe I need to watch the movie and get back to y'all. From what I could tell from the Wikipedia plots page, it's not exactly the same. Definitely similarities, but it's not as extreme to my knowledge of Saltburn. Now, with that being said, let's really talk about extreme. Now, as much as I want to come on here and just be like, oh my gosh, the drain scene and the grave scene were just so nasty. They were, but I have to offer some more nuance, if you will. Let's really call into action this idea that Saltburn has no substance and is all just style. Like let's really talk about these scenes for real. Now, I've seen many a movie where I could tell you that they just did shit for shock factor and it literally did not need to happen that way. Case in point, Evil Dead, which literally I did research on, got banned in a lot of places because it was just extra gory for no reason. I could say Saltburn, like, you have to give it a little bit of grace, because yeah, like, he was doing too much and he wanted to be a vampire like Olivia Rodrigo, but I have to give him a little bit of grace. It sounds crazy to be like, give him some grace, because I was the same one posting on my story that I don't know who even approved the grave scene. Like, to this day though, I still want to know who approved it, and I just want to talk to them for a second and figure out what was going through their mind when they told Barry that it was okay to the dirt. I still want to know that though, and I still want to know why he was guzzling the out of that drain. I still do want to know that. However, what I can say is that there's a sort of beauty to it. Ugh, I hate to say it. Like, I can't be hypocritical. Like, it gives me the same vibe as Bones and All. Like, think about it. If you have seen Bones and All, the ending scene is literally similar to the premise of Saltburn as well. Like, we get to the end, it's kind of like the epitome of what it would mean to love Marin is to allow her to eat Lee, like to eat the entirety of Lee, like literally bones and all, like eat his entire body. And that's absurd as well. But if you think about it, it was like the most extreme, very extreme, but it was a way for Marin to be close to Lee even though he was dead. It's so absurd to a grave. But even in life, with him guzzling the drain, it was a way for him to be close to Felix Like, it sounds absurd to be explaining this, but it's true. Like, I don't know, it just really calls out like how guilty Oliver was, of course, like that he would get down on the ground and strip butt naked. Everything was all out, and he was just like on the dirt. Like, he was so down bad. Like, you have to put yourself together. That's Nate Jacobs. Like, you can't be doing this for Nate Jacobs. Like, if I have to be real, like, a lot of what Oliver was doing gave me like Girl Crush. Like, if y'all know that song Girl Crush, or like Lacey vibe. The song Girl Crush specifically is basically explaining this idea of being so obsessed with like the woman that your ex-boyfriend is dating, because like it's no longer you, right? So like now you have a girl crush because you're obsessed with this girl who is now like in your place, right? They see similar idea, like to be obsessed with this girl who is aspirational for you because she's everything that you're not, like the things that society hates about you, right? It's kind of similar to Saltburn, like if you think about it. Like it was nasty, but it's kind of true. Like he was making his way through the entire family. Like, he made a pass at Elizabeth saying that she was beautiful. She did not bite. Even in the end, she calls him out and be like, you just want to be like Felix so fucking bad, like you're a rat.
Thank you. Fucking freak, little nobody.
You're a rat, the liar and a fucking snake.
Fuck you.
That was her in that tub. Like, he was doing everything in his power to make his way through everyone who was even remotely connected to Felix because he couldn't have the real deal. Again, going back to that cuckold idea, like that Reddit user ate just that little one. As much as I want to just be like, oh, that was so disgusting, like I have to give it some grace. But upon first watch, it was very jarring, and I don't know necessarily that had to be in the movie, but I can understand where Oliver was coming from in his like delusional brain. Like, his brain was working overtime to justify him f***ing dirt. I'm just saying. Of course, the lyrics of the song and the title of the song are very self-explanatory and very straightforward. I mean, besides what Barry said, I don't even think there's much more to break down. Like, I really like that idea that it's his space now. He owns everything. He can dance around butt-ass naked if he wants to. That's really the epitome of just being comfortable in your own space. He scammed his way to the top. He got the bag. He earned the right to sit there and dance around naked with his out, swinging for everyone to see. I found out later that it was not a prosthetic. Good for him. Good for him. Like, I feel like them in the weeds, just chilling in the grass. Good for you. So we did this video to decide whether Saltburn was just all style and no substance, or if it brought something unique and different to the table. Okay, I have to say a lot of it was shock factor and a lot of it was style, because I was watching it like, this is just beautiful. To say that it has no substance, it's like, don't do my babies like that. Like, don't do my pookies like that. They kind of like, they ate a little bit, maybe. At some points I was bored and kind of confused. Like, the most interesting parts were him like being absurd and like his way through the Saltburn estate. Like, I mean, the next people up were the servants. Like, that one servant that was walking around was about to be next, okay? If the dad didn't hate him, he probably would have the dad. Let's just be real.
Maybe you just shouldn't speak your opinion to everybody, because some people are not going to respond the way you want to respond.
To say it has no substance, this is the service of the movie, because there's things in there that are obviously choices. Maybe I'm just delusional and maybe I'm just looking into it, but like, who cares at this point? Like, I'm right and you're not. They wanted a real bitch to talk about Saltburn, and that's what they got, okay? It's been a long time since I did a talking video like this, and this one might be kind of long. But let me know if you want more videos like this, where I break down movies and give my thoughts on them, instead of just reacting to them. Because, you know, I like to do a sit and react and make faces to the movie, but I also like to talk more. So, thank you guys for watching. Be sure to leave your thoughts about Saltburn down below. What did you rate it out of 5 stars? What did you put as your review on Letterboxd? Did you think Jacob Elordi was sexy with the piercing or not? What did you think about Barry being booty crack naked like he was just giving birth to? Let's talk about it. Catch y'all next time.